Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Mr. Teray, if you would join us, please. Thank you.
Okay, so 1201?
Don't tell anybody else about the bug problem. It's only two, but they're bad. They're ugly. It's only two that she's seen.
Yeah.
When she gets home
There's a
tonight,
mystery.
there might be four. The cat will be passed out on the ground from like swatting at him all day. Yeah, he'll be tired.
Oh, that's okay. They don't know if it's hollow or
Is it dead? Like you can smell it?
Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. Secretary, please call the roll. Please call the roll.
Okay. Mr. Teray?
Here.
Mrs. Stockton?
Here.
Mr. Heisel?
Here.
And Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Anderson?
Here.
Secretary's eye here, and President Dr. Hall?
Here, please stand for the pledge.
The United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we do get started, I would like to take a moment of silence for the student that we lost this month, so please observe that at this time.
Dr. Hall, can I just add those two police officers that was killed a couple weeks ago as well?
Okay, 2 police officers that were killed also. Okay. Do we have public comment? Okay, thank you. At this time, we will have our good news report. Superintendent Cunningham.
I think most of us expected to have a few more minutes, maybe a good news report or two. The high school principal is set to be here, along with these 3 outstanding all-state athletes, all-state academic athletes. We tried to get these athletes here in December, but the schedule didn't happen correctly. They were scheduled to be here this evening, and because of cancellations, when you have 3 scholar athletes, they had a rescheduled AP prep class, so they were unable to be here this evening. But I did want to make sure that we recognize them. We've had them on the website, and that the board also recognized them and sent out a certificate to all 3 of them. There were 3 recognized all-state academics for football. Outstanding work for all 3 of them.
Hey, on that note, Mr. Cunningham, do we usually post, you may not know the answer, but do we usually post their photos or something to that nature outside of the hallway? Or, I'm not sure.
I'd have to check with the principal on that, but I know we posted it on the website and congratulated them on the website. It was actually, I believe it was this picture. It was.
Okay, I thought when they reached that status, their photos are posted somewhere visibly in the building.
Their photos are posted alongside the athletic hallway.
Oh, okay.
Outstanding. Thank you, ma'am.
Are they there now? Oh, okay.
Dr. Harden, you walked in just in time to finish up the good news report. If you'd come up for a moment and kind of give us a quick one over these three athletes. I just told them there were three outstanding all-state football scholars.
Yes, board and community members and staff employees of the district. I couldn't be any more proud than Justin Walters and Schaefer and Clint Rakovich. Just amazing athletes, but more importantly, they are amazing students. They are providing the leadership that is so important to this school. We hear a lot about our athletic programs, but we are an educational institution first, and these three young men are just exemplary athletes. So certainly kudos to those young men and their families. They were supposed to be here on this evening. A couple of them are doing ACT prep, which falls right in line with why they're getting this award. And the third one we just still haven't heard from. I'm sure all is well with him, but we just haven't heard from him today. But on behalf of those athletes and those families, I appreciate the Board of Education for acknowledging what we are really here for, and that's the academic part of this organization. So thank you so much, Board, Superintendent, and staff.
Thank you.
Thank you. As we do know, it is very important for our athletes to not only be successful in their sport, but also in the classroom. We know that it can be a struggle juggling a sport commitment as well as maintaining a good academic profile. So congratulations to those students. Okay, board updates. I believe we have our policy later. Okay. There are no board updates this evening. Moving.
Location where you're going to address the update on the policy?
It is in the...
You have another slide?
Yes, it's in that superintendent's report, I believe.
Yes, I'm going to talk specifically about those.
Okay.
Okay. Two rules.
Is this where we can ask a question about a policy change? Where do you want me to ask the question?
Probably at the end of my report.
The end of your report? Okay.
Okay, administrative updates, curriculum, Ms. Hirsch.
Thank you. This month's report is on the Illinois 5 Essentials Survey. This is pretty much a state-mandated survey. By law, all districts in Illinois are required to administer either this survey or a survey of similar quality once every 2 years. Our survey window is from January 12th, which started last week, through March 13th of this year, so we pretty much have 2 months to do this. And the survey itself was developed by the University of Chicago, and it's based on assessing performance on 5 indicators for school improvement, and those are effective leaders, collaborative teachers, involved families, supportive environment, and ambitious instruction. What happens, the information that we get from the survey is designed to inform our school improvement plans. And we have 3 groups that are eligible to participate in the survey. One, of course, are our teachers. Another are our parents. And the third group are our students who are in grades 6 through 12. The survey itself is administered online. It takes less than 30 minutes, probably more like 15 or 20 minutes to complete. And all of our schools have developed a plan to facilitate participation among all 3 groups. We've posted parent login information to our website and to Family Access, thanks to Mrs. Nash's efforts. And also our schools are putting the information in the newsletter. We also have the link posted on the screen right now so that people can see that. And what our 6th through 12th grade buildings will do is send home, if they haven't done so already, they will send home a letter to parents giving them the option to opt their student out of the survey. Sometimes parents don't want students to participate, although we highly encourage it because we get great feedback from our students. And also I included in the board packet, which is available for the public, all of the questions for those 3 participant groups. So families can, or parents can access those questions either from our website or from the 5 Essentials website. We are required to get a certain response rate in order for the results to be posted. 50% of our teachers need to respond in order for the school survey results to go to the school report card. Today we devoted some of our Institute Day time to letting our teachers participate, and right now we have 6 schools that have met that minimum criteria. We also need 50% of our students in those 6th through 12th grade buildings, and then 20% of our parents. The results of the survey are posted to the school report card, which will be released in October of 2015, and the school report card will have information from teachers and from students. And then the parent report is a separate report that we get. And basically our timeline is we have our 2-month survey window. Survey results will be processed during the months of April and May, and our district and principals should receive some information back in June, and then, as I said, in October, those results will be posted on the school report card or the supplemental parent report. Parents are eligible to complete a survey for every school in which they have a student. So if you have students in 3 different buildings, you can complete a survey for each of those schools. And we're looking forward to the results. It does give us some good information, and we are happy to have the opportunity to collect that data.
Ms. Hirsch, what have you guys done with the data that you collected in the previous years? Has the information been utilized, or?
Well, the first year was 2013, so that was the initial launch of the survey. And what the state did was we participated, and the data came back to us. But statewide, school districts raised some issues with the results of the survey because the baseline data was collected. It was compared to results collected from the City of Chicago public schools, and what the state districts or the districts asked the state to do was to go back and use the 2013 data as a baseline to come up with some comparables for all school districts so that we would be compared amongst ourselves as opposed to just being compared to Chicago public schools. And so they gave us some very cursory data, and then last year we were not participating because it is an every other year survey. So it's really been an initial collection of data. Some of the other issues that were with the 2013 survey were that there were no controls on who participated. You know, you could go to the website and you didn't have to log in. Our teachers didn't log in. Our students didn't log in. We didn't have accurate counts, so we didn't really know for sure that exactly who had answered the survey. So the state dealt with some of those issues, and this year they're actually going to, they put some more control measures into it. So it's still kind of in its infancy. But the indicators have 20 years worth of research behind them, and they have a lot of data that shows that the results of the survey are important for school improvement planning, and that as schools are rated higher on more measures, they tend to do better in student achievement. So it's got a good, strong history of research behind it. So I guess to answer your question, we didn't do a lot with it because of the questions regarding the comparison group. So we had schools that came back that said maybe they were weak in some areas, but our test scores were good. And schools looked at them, but we really didn't do a lot with it since it was in its initial implementation.
Can you explain maybe some of the things that we'll be looking at doing once we collect this information going forward? I think that the challenge, and I don't mean to speak for you, Mrs. Sanders, is that the board and others are looking for is, okay, we do these surveys, you have us go to this spot, and why are we doing it? What are we using it for? How is it going to help our students be more successful?
Well, and I think that if you look at these 5 indicators, we're getting feedback on areas that are important to improving student learning. So the school improvement teams will sit and look at their data. They can drill down to the specific questions. I would expect our schools to do some kind of report out to their parents as far as the data collected from them, and we certainly get a district report that I would be, I plan to share with the board. So as the data comes in, we will do more to disseminate that information once we get it, since we're beyond our initial implementation, and I think they fixed a few of the concerns that were associated with it in the initial year.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'm going to propose
I have a
moving
question.
forward that, because this is the third year, right?
Third year for the state.
This will be the third year. And so I'm sure they're tweaking and getting rid of, the blips and all of that. So at this point, what is on the survey will more than likely be there to stay, correct?
I'm sorry, can you?
Will more than likely be there to stay because
Yes.
they've gotten feedback, they've gotten all.
Yes.
So I'm going to propose that this survey, the results of this survey and the data coming forth from it be filtered automatically through the education committee as just a practice
Sure.
every year, and then the results brought to the board meeting as well. And then to clarify, I believe, I'm not sure if you just said it, but 20%, we need 20% of our overall parent participation?
Each building needs 20%.
For their building?
So these rates are per school. So if the school meets these targeted percentages, then the school information gets reported back to the school.
Okay.
So 50%, say it, the 50-50 is a cumulative total?
It's 50, we need 50, if 50% of our teachers fill out the survey, then the teacher data will be reported to that school.
Okay.
If 50% of our students in those upper grade buildings complete the survey, which we're going to do it during the school day, so we ensure that we get 50% of our students, then that data will then be reported to the school, and then if 20% of the parents in those schools fill that out, the school will get that data, and then we will get a cumulative report for the district.
And then you mentioned that you're doing this survey practice with the students in school. I heard you mention opt-out. Is there a letter of permission for parents to give their permission, their children permission to participate during the school hour? Do we have that?
The letter, it's an opt-out letter as opposed to an opt-in. So the letter goes home and says, we're participating in this, and if you prefer to not have your student participate, complete the bottom portion of the letter and return it to school.
Right, because it is a state initiative, so we have to do it as a district, but we give parents an opportunity to opt out if they so desire. I received the email as a parent, which is just an email. So are we getting this information out other than sending an email to parents?
Well, we've put something in all of our school newsletters. The schools are developing plans through either individual teachers are sending out information, they're planning school events, so as parents come in to do that, we can do school messenger. Natalie and I have been working together to make sure that we're getting this out to parents. So it's kind of an ongoing process, and I think the important thing about it is that we have a 2-month window, so it's not, we have time to make sure that we do this. So we're only, 4 or 5 days into this, and we had some snow days and things like that kind of caused us to be a little backed up on this, but we are working closely. I'm working closely with Natalie to make sure that we do get the word out to his parents in as many ways as possible.
And I like how the letter, I like how the letter included that you needed at least 20% of parents, because I think parents need to know that. So whatever information is going out, Natalie as well, if we can make sure we let the parents know that we need at least 20% in order for their voice to count, basically. So, okay.
I think Mr. Sheree had a question first, and I have a statement and a question.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how are you going to figure who these people are so we can target, where it gives these questions about, do you feel you're learning from this teacher? Do you feel your teacher's doing it? Are they going to be identified, or if they're not going to be identified, what's the point?
Well,
you know, we want to weed out the bad teachers, you know, and at least talk to them.
Well, you're looking at the student survey?
Yeah, I'm looking at the student part of it, and then, you know, and on the parent part, you know, it says things like, how do you rate the computer lab and stuff? How many parents have been in a computer lab? How many parents have been into the gym? You know, how many parents have been in the library? I don't, the thing looks like a boondoggle to me. That's my comment.
It's very difficult to build a survey to cover each and everything, each and every school in the state of Illinois, and that's why it's so general. It is. And what we're doing is we're going to try to get the best information from this survey that we can to help improve student academics. That's what we're after. The information that we get is going to be anonymous so that our students are comfortable enough to be able to give us, in our minds, the full truth without having to worry about anything else.
But if they don't tell you who this teacher is that they're not getting what they need out of, what is the point, Nate? You know, anonymity to the point of oblivion. You know, it doesn't.
But this is also.
Well, it's
something
not
that the
designed to
state is-
give individuals information concerning teachers. It's a state survey, and I want to point out also, in answer to your question, there is an option of does not apply. So if you've never been in a computer lab, you would check does not apply. But this is not a survey designed to weed out individual people. It is a general survey to give us information to use as appropriate.
Right, and also, if I can add, if I'm understanding correctly, Madam President, that this is not a survey that was created by the district, it was created by the state. This is what the state is asking for us to give the students and parents and staff to comment on. But my statement was back to what Ms. Hirsch was saying. I think it would be a good idea to send out school messenger. I think that would be a very good tool to use in order to notify the parents about the survey. And then secondly, my question is, if a parent has multiple children in the district, do they fill out a survey for each school that the child is in, the children
Yes.
are in? Okay. Thank you.
My final statement on it is regardless to whether it's a state mandated survey, I want to know that we're following the board policy that was initiated, I want to say in 2011-12 regarding surveys. We're speaking a whole lot about school messenger, and I know personally we are delayed in our ability at times to ensure that dated information gets to parents in a timely manner. So I'm not going to want to hear that somebody got a letter after the fact or some communication, because again, whether it's opt-out or not, and we don't have to do it just because it's a state mandate, we would like people to do it, and we would like the students to do it. People still have an opportunity to say, I don't want to do it. For whatever the reasons are, they have that option, but I want to make sure that we don't get post-dated letters or delayed letters that don't give them the opportunity to do just that.
So the statement is, we need to make sure those letters and emails and all the information out on School Reach happens before the kids are lined up to do those tests in the classroom.
Absolutely.
We will.
And let's be clear, the mandate is on the district to administer the survey, not for the individuals to participate.
Correct.
Okay, any final questions or comments? Thank you. Ms. Hirsch. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Moved by Mr. Heisel.
Second.
Second by Mr. Brown. Any questions or comments?
I wanted to ask a question about the policy. We're going to approve board policy in this consent agenda, is that correct?
Yeah, but it's not the policy you're looking at there. That's coming
That's just
specifically
coming
by
up.
itself, and I will
Okay.
speak to it.
Got it. Never mind.
I do have a question on page 162. It's with the interest income. 162.
Mr. Brown, which policy would that be?
This is not a policy.
Page
No.
162.
162. That's okay. It's under the approval of the treasurer report. It's the interest income. Now, I brought this up to Bob once before, our previous business manager, but you see the two subtotals. One is $4,077. The other one is $93,507. They call me the dollar man, see. But if you add those up, it'd be $97,584.
So you'd like to see the change
I'd
on
like to see
future reports?
either the change or just.
I understand.
All righty. And if you look at number 3, our interest income source, Old Plank Trail, and this came up in the Finance Committee several months ago, maybe a year or so ago. Old Plank Trail is a financial institute that we allow them to hold our money in some capacity. In returns, we get interest and so on and so forth. So I think we're getting a pretty good ROI, return on investment. But what I want to see from them, because they had some troubles in the past, this is Old Plank Trail, a certificate of sovereignty.
We were supposed to.
Of
get that
solvency?
before.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know when we got it last. It should be a yearly thing. And I think, and we should be going in on a quarterly basis, at least, and checking out these firms. But I'll talk to you more offline on that, Dr. Williams. Just give me a heads up
Okay.
on that, okay? So we want to ensure that at some level that these financial institutes are holding their own
Okay.
with our money.
No
Okay?
problem.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm accepting it, yes, but just moving forward, because I went back and we had another one like this too. So it was like over the last 6 or 7 months, they've been going both ways. So I said, okay, you have not been abreast of what this has cost over the last couple years, but that's the dollar man comment. Thank you.
I will take care of it.
So it's noted that Dr. Williams will see to it that the grand total is changed from $97,585 to $97,584. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Heisel?
Aye.
Mrs. Stockton?
Aye.
Mr. Teray?
Aye.
Secretary is aye. Dr. Hall?
Aye. I would like to acknowledge an acknowledgement that the Board of Education and administrators have received. The family of Edmund Victor Verbeck acknowledges with grateful appreciation your kind expression of sympathy. Signed, Tom Verbeck, former school board president. Moving on to our action reports, Superintendent Cunningham.
Before we jump into the action reports, I'd like to stray just a little bit. With our approval of the consent agenda item this evening, we have approved a new Director of Special Education, and she is in the audience, and I would like to introduce her to the Board of Education and give her an opportunity to say hello, if she would like to say hello up here on the microphone, and introduce any family members or anybody else. We congratulate Mrs. Ellen Ramsden Bellotti on taking this new position. She will take the position officially 1 July 2015, and we will be working with our interim special education director to create a transition plan. With that, hello.
I'm very excited to be here, and especially just thrilled to join a community of stakeholders, both within the brick and mortar here, but also outside of the brick and mortar, those that are working. Can you hear me? I never really.
We hear you. I don't think they.
I've never been really accused of having a quiet voice. But anyway, I'm thrilled to be working with the stakeholders here who truly are working towards the success of all children, every one of our children. And you allowed me to introduce someone, and I have my husband with me, Frank. So thank you. I'm going to spend some time transitioning during the next couple of months with Dr. Arlen, so when July 1st comes, I will be up and ready, I hope, and looking forward to it. So take care, everybody, and thank you for this opportunity.
So is it true that behind every successful woman there's a good man, or is it something like that?
Very true, yes.
I think that
Welcome
goes the
aboard.
other way around.
I know.
Thank you and welcome. I'm sorry, Mr. Cunningham, before you peruse into that, there are additional donations. I do need to acknowledge Dr. James Hardin, Principal, Crete Monee High School, would like to thank Mr. Juan Nunez for his donation to the homework lab at the high school. Dr. Harding would also like to thank Mr. Matt Simeon, I believe it is, at the Chicago Bears Football Club. Oh, wow, for their $2,500 grant to help assist the football program. Dr. Harding would like to thank Mike Overturf at Athletico Physical Therapy for their $2,500 grant to assist the football program. Mrs. Joanne Jones, Monee Elementary School principal, would like to thank South Suburban Mitsubishi for their donation that went towards Monee families, donated gifts. She would also like to thank Monee Free Methodist Church for their donation to Monee Elementary families of money and gift cards. She'd like to thank Trinity Evangelical Christian Church for their donations of gifts to the families of Monee Elementary. She'd like to thank the Village of Monee for their donated gifts to the families of Monee Elementary. Also, UCP Seguin of Greater Chicago had their holiday gift drive, thanking them for their donations of gifts to the families at Monee Elementary. Melissa Huff, social worker, would like to thank UCP Seguin as well for their donations and their donations to the students and the families, their families, I should say. And we also have a letter here from UCP Seguin of Greater Chicago saying that they hope that the families enjoyed the gifts that were donated. And that concludes that report. Thank you.
I think we still have one more. I don't know exactly how we categorize it. Maybe we categorize it as a donation to the community. Overflowing Well Ministries had an opportunity for a giveaway. They have it at CSK on December 20th, and Representative Anthony DeLuca was there, Mayor Vivian Covington, Trustees Joe Hernandez and Keith Griffin from University Park, along with Secretary Kimberly Sanders, Vice President Maurice Brown. I found from an article that he wears a lot more hats than just the Vice President of the board. Principal Dr. James Hardin and myself participated in the food giveaway. They were able to support 50 families in our community that supported over 80 children. I just thought that was an outstanding event, and we appreciate so much to be able to be involved in events like this that support our communities.
Thank you. Okay, Superintendent action reports.
Okay, we have our first action report here that includes the two new, approval of two new board policies. One of the things that we've done is we've revamped the board policy system where we go through a circular process to make sure input is available for everyone. We start off with our first review, and then the board goes through a first read, and then we go back to a second review, and then the board goes to the second read. When we put in this process, one of the things that the board asked us was, well, if we're going to do this and it's going to be a longer process, what happens if there are board policies that we need to make sure are put into place fairly quickly? And I assured the board and the committee that we would be able to come in and do a policy if it needed to be done right then. This is our first example of that with board policies 7291 and board policies 5331. These policies are for what we will do if there is a death of a student or a staff member as separated, and how we will memorialize them at our schools. What would be allowed, what wouldn't be allowed, what kind of support the school district would do to ensure that we were doing our due diligence. And it is my recommendation to the Board of Education that we pass this this evening, and I'm ready to answer any questions if there are any.
Yeah, I got a question on it. Memorials, we've had discussions about memorials and whether they should be on the school grounds, et cetera, and I've been an opponent to it. I don't think we should do them for everyone that happens to die. But I do notice here in 2-1, where it says the school district will not allow any kind of a memorial in the yearbook. I don't quite understand why we can't have a page that just says a memorandum and in memorial in the student's name. Where, you know, I'm reading all this stuff in here about it, you don't want to remind them about death, et cetera, et cetera. You know, to me, this is pure liberal talk. I mean, you know, death is a part of life. I don't think we should shy away from it, be afraid of it. You know, people die. It's going to happen to all of us. It's unavoidable. You know, I just I can understand the no funerals on the property. I can understand all of these other activities not being scheduled, but a simple memorial in memorandum of so-and-so happened to pass away, a student that year. I don't understand why this is not allowed as some way to show that they were at least a part of the class, you know. And I don't get that part of it.
Okay, one of the things that we did was we made sure that we did research on this before we came forward with a policy for the Board of Education. And the research showed us that everybody grieves in different ways. And the reason that we started with the memorials, not having them, is because we don't want it to be a situation where we're forcing kids to be involved with grieving. If the student chooses to grieve in their own way, we want them to have that ability and that the school district would support it. But we don't want to force anyone to grieve. You can't. And that was the reason why those are the items that are not included aren't included there. There are different ways that we can include the students without saying that every yearbook that we sell has to have a memorial in it, because not everybody who wants to buy a memorial, wants to buy a yearbook, wants to participate in that memorial. That's why that was put in.
Well, I'm going to just say I disagree with it. I think they were part of the class, and you know, they were students here. They passed away. You know, a simple Joe Blow or Susie Q was a memorandum is leave all the circumstances out of it. Just a nice little wreath and their name inside. I don't think it's going to do any harm whatsoever, and I think it would be healthy for the kids to have that. That's my personal opinion. And they were classmates.
I just want to add, Mike, that certainly we did discuss this in depth, And I probably, even in hindsight, and knowing the yearbook process in this school district specifically, I could concede, again, having this added, and only because the yearbook here is not given until the next year. So the effect, potentially, of any student having to have the reminder perhaps is not as drastic as I initially considered, because I certainly understand both sides of it, but certainly the yearbook is not, you don't even get it until a long time after, if you even get it. That's another story. After the, after the year. I mean, seniors have to come back actually to get the book if they intend to get it. So that's just a thought of consideration.
If I have a comment. I mean, in my yearbook, my junior yearbook, we had a memorial to a girl that was killed in a car accident. And even I talked over with my husband, and who is a graduate of Crete, Monee, and they had a couple memorials in the yearbook to students that had passed on. So that I agree with everyone, that it should be in the yearbook. Whether it's just, you pass it through the parents, you pass it through the yearbook committee, and you find out whether, they have any objection. If they do, then you don't put it in. But if they don't, then either a picture or just wordage. Either way, I think it should be done.
Having been at this business longer than most of you, and having been, a yearbook advisor, and having lost a large number of students over the years, it has always been in the school districts in which I worked to have a mention in the yearbook as a memorial, in memory of, however they wanted to put it, or in memoriam. But it was there. It means a lot to the family and to the friends of that child and to the students who happen to have had that staff member. I honestly think that there is no reason a memorial in a yearbook can't be done for any staff member and or student who passes away.
I was just going to add my 2 cents. I can see both sides of it, and I agree with what's being said, especially with what Mary was saying in reference to maybe asking the question if anyone would have any objections to it. But I could see it being done also.
So what do we do?
Just amend that and delete that portion, and the policy should go forward.
If someone would if they wanted to make a motion.
So could you just clarify again, the reason for this memorials not being mentioned in the yearbook is because of the professional research that was depicted, I guess, or shown, or?
Yes, it was
pretty much it's a professional opinion.
It was a professional opinion.
And that was based on research.
Correct.
So I guess as boards, we can, supersede that because we're the board, not the professionals. But the professionals are the ones that says, based on this, it's recommended that it do not go this way.
That was why we drafted the policy in that manner.
Okay.
And I mean, the bottom line, either way, is that, right, we supersede, we know what's best, or we should know what's best for our district based on feedback. Again, I don't know, Tom, no disrespect to you, but how long you have to be around to know that people empathize and want to have memory. I mean, that it kind of goes with the process. The professionals and researchers, they do research because they want to keep busy and they want to find out different things, but research probably, as you've indicated, is shown in your educational experience in all these years, that people do, this is something that would be most beneficial opposed to not. So it's not, it's kind of a no-brainer maybe, but I appreciate, and that's what I want to say, the in-depth work that you guys put in it, because I think what Mr. Brown is alluding to is that we didn't just dig this out of a can, and at some point there are studies that show in the event that somebody does feel indifferent about us putting it in the yearbook, and there may be one or two or many, but at least we've done due diligence, and I'm supportive of that.
I would like to make a motion that we approve both policies with the amendment that memorials may be made in the yearbook in case of both staff and students who pass away.
I'll second it.
Someone made a concern about, I think, Mary, prior approval, so I just want to point out that that is outlined in here, that nothing can be done without prior approval of the families. So the motion on the table is for us to approve policies 7291 and 5331 with the changes of memorials being allowed in the school yearbook.
Right.
So the motion was made by Mr. Heisel, second by Mr. Teray. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Teray?
Aye.
Mrs. Stockton?
Aye.
Mr. Heisel?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Secretary's aye. Dr. Hall?
Aye. Moving along, business. Dr. Williams.
Good evening, members of the Board of Education and our Crete Monee extended community. Included in your packet is a recommendation to approve an agreement with COTG, also known as Chicago Office Technology Group, via Wells Fargo for the lease purchase of 400 Chromebooks. The Chromebooks would be utilized as instructional technology for all K through 5 classrooms. It would also be utilized to support the testing required for the PARC assessment, which begins this March. This purchase may sound familiar to you because it was actually part of the technology plan that was approved by the Board of Education in 2013, and I believe it was discussed by my predecessor last spring and included in the technology budget for this year. I think it's worth noting as well that the lease agreement includes a $1 buyout per unit, and we do expect to be able to use these units for more than the 36 months. So with that, I would like to make the recommendation that the Board of Education approve the attached agreements and authorize myself to execute the lease documents accordingly.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the COTG Chromebooks lease agreement?
Moved.
Moved by Mrs. Stockton.
Second.
Second by Mr. Heisel. Any comments or questions?
How many of them are there?
400. Thank you.
And clarify again which classrooms will be receiving these?
All K through 5 classrooms would receive some of the units, and then for the testing would actually support the entire district. So when it's time to test, we would pull those from the classrooms and distribute them to the buildings that need additional computers for testing.
So K through 5 in each of the 4 buildings? Let's see.
Five.
Five?
You see
Five
his page?
buildings.
Yes, all 5.
buildings.
So in each classroom, are you saying? Each
Yes.
classroom is going to get?
I believe 4?
Yeah, 3 to 4.
3 to 4 per classroom.
Wow.
What is the cost of buying them?
I'm
Versus
sorry.
the $108,000 that we're going to pay to lease them?
What is the cost per machine?
Just to buy the machines and have them. We're paying $270 a unit, it says here, $108,365, which is roughly $270 a unit at an interest rate of 2.42% to lease them. Why can't we get a better price than this if we just go out and buy them?
When we reviewed the price, we did contact 3 different vendors, and we reviewed the price for purchasing versus leasing, and the leasing was more cost-effective. I can provide additional data regarding that comparison, if you'd like.
I'd like to see it because it seems like this is a lot of money here to lease something. We got to give them back, and this testing isn't going away, so we're going to wind up leasing them again for another 4 years.
Well, no, Mr. Teray, we have no intention of giving them back. We were going to buy them out. There's a dollar buyout option, which means that for $400 total at the end of the 36-month lease, we can keep all 400 computers.
$400 total?
Total, yes, it's $1 per unit.
That was one of the selling points when we were discussing it in finance, if you remember.
Yeah, but will it still be applicable in 4 years?
The machines, we will still be able to utilize the machines in 4 years. We estimate that we would be able to utilize them for a minimum of 2 additional years beyond the lease period.
Okay, because, they change this Windows stuff every other day.
You're absolutely right.
Are we going to buy a pig and a poke for $1 a piece? I don't know what we're buying. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Secretary, please call the roll.
So it's back on you, Mr. Teray.
I'm going to vote no on this.
Okay. Mrs. Stockton?
Aye.
And Mr. Heisel?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
And Secretary's aye. Dr. Hall?
Absolutely, aye. Next, architectural services.
Included in your packet is a recommendation to initiate negotiations with architectural firm C. Also included is a copy of the presentation that was presented by that firm at the Finance Committee meeting and portions of their initial response to the request for qualifications. And before the recommendation comes, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the process from beginning to end. The process was conducted in accordance with Board Policy 2:170 and also in accordance with the Illinois School Code, which requires that we it requires that we select architects on the basis of demonstrated competence and qualifications. So to start the process, the administrative team met with 15 different architectural firms, and I do want to take this opportunity to thank my colleagues, Ms. Hirsch, Ms. Spence, and Mr. Neal, because they took almost a full day of their time to meet with these architectural firms in conjunction with the superintendent and myself. So we met with 15 firms. They provided 20-minute presentations. There was a short interview afterwards, and we ranked the 15 firms. And the 3 highest ranked firms then went to the Finance Committee for a more detailed interview. At the Finance Committee meeting, 6 board members and 4 cabinet members met with the 3 firms individually. Again, there was a presentation component. There was a longer interview with specific parameters regarding what should be presented and discussed. Those were then ranked by all of the participants, the administration and the board members, and every participant ranked architectural firm C the highest. In addition to those 2 phases, reference checks were conducted on all 3 firms. The reference checks for Architect C came back as extremely favorable. And finally, the administrative team reviewed the process from end to end, considered all of the factors and all of the data that was received throughout the process, the presentations, the interviews, the reference checks, and additional findings throughout the process. And all of that information once again confirmed that Architect C was the highest ranking firm. So at this point, the next step would be for the board to authorize the administration to begin negotiations with architectural firm C, and that is what we are requesting at this time. I'd be happy to address any questions that you may have regarding the process or this recommendation.
May I have a motion to approve the beginning of negotiations with Architect C?
I got some questions.
You can ask your questions when I'm done with the motion. Thank you.
Move.
Moved by Mr. Heisel,
Second.
second by Mr. Brown. Questions or comments? Mr. Toure.
Okay, I have some questions or comments about it that I just want the public to know. These architectural firms that we interviewed, that the staff interviewed and then the school board interviewed, all presented good programs, but one thing was very lacking in my opinion. There's a law here that says we cannot talk to them because they're a professional service about how much they're going to charge us, what their hourly rate is. Public PA 94-1097 says in no case shall a political subdivision prior to selecting a firm for negotiation under Section 7 seek formal or informal submission of verbal or written estimates of costs or proposals in terms of dollars, hours required, percentages of construction costs, or any other measures of compensation. To me, that makes no sense. We should be able to ask them how we're going to save some money. I don't think there's very many firms out there that are still in business that aren't reputable. I have asked one of our local representatives, Mr. DeLuca, to look into this and see if this law can be amended so that we can ask questions on how much it's going to cost us. We've spent a lot of time, I know the staff has, and we've spent a day going over this and reading a lot of additional time at home reading all their presentations. And we still don't know if they're going to charge us any less than the firm we got now. So are we going to save any money for the taxpayer? We have no idea at this point until we negotiate now. And then if I understand this right, Dr. Williams, if they come up with charging as much or more, we can then at that point in time we can go to the next number 2 on the list. Is that correct?
If we cannot come to agreement on the rates and the language of the master contract, which will be reviewed by the attorney, then we would go to the next highest ranking firm. That is correct.
Okay. All right. So I just want the public to know that I personally, as their elected representative, think this process is wrong. We should be able to ask prices, and we should be able to compare apples to apples and see if we're going to save some money for you. Taxes are high enough. So like I say, I've asked our representative to look into it. No promises, of course, but we'll see if anything can be done about this. Thank you.
Well, do you mind telling us what Representative DeLuca responded back to you as far as what he's going to do?
He said that to please forward him a copy of this law so he could look into it. They're in session now, and he said that the quicker you could get it to him, the better. And he'll see if he can amend this or change the law. And once he reviews it, and maybe I'm just totally wrong, and there's something I'm missing here. But I want him to look into it and see if we can, like buying a car, you go in and you ask how much it costs. You worry about the bells and whistles later.
So right at this point, I believe that we are following the law.
Yes, we are.
That's correct.
Okay.
You're following the law, but I wanted to see if we can get the law changed to make more common sense, in my opinion.
Okay, and Mr. Toure, just so you know, because we all are elected by the people, just the same as you, and this question was asked last year when the consideration of our current firm was a question, and it was shoved down our throats then. No, you got to do this, you got to do that, because the laws are the laws of the land, and I don't think you're any different, with all due respect, than anyone who would ask our state or government officials to look at or consider laws that make it more difficult for us to do the tasks that we have to do. I think we're still within, good positioning because we're not stuck with anybody. At this point, we're looking to negotiate. I certainly don't expect that we would have the same prices because the time we bid for architectural services before, it was many years ago. I would imagine prices have increased certainly I don't expect anybody to come in and gouge us, but it is up to, it will be our responsibility in the selection process. These people know what we're looking to do and perhaps even why we change or looking to make some adjustments in this process. So I don't think we're stuck. We would be stuck if we continue to stay stagnant in not having gone through this process, which I believe was the right thing to do, given that things change and our needs and our finances haven't changed at all as far as our ability to pay, astronomical funds. So, yes, I agree with you that certainly the question of asking, can some laws be changed? But of course, I hope it does not negate us from moving forward, because we still have to get, and I think you've been a proponent, let's do something about getting to the place of building buildings. This is that step, the negotiation process. I thought the procedure that we went through as far as looking at these individuals, and I too agree, we've had all this information for now a week or so or more to review many of the caveats that are included in their proposals. So we're well educated, or somewhat educated, at least to the degree that we can be at this juncture, on what they can offer or provide. And now our representatives, I would imagine, are going back, and we still can say that's not good enough. Come back with some more details. Negotiation is a back and forth and working conversation in my understanding of it. So I don't think we're stuck at this point. We're in a driver's seat. Am I understanding that right?
You are correct. And I do hear the board loud and clear that we want to negotiate rates that are less than some of the rates we've paid in the past.
Rates and the integrity of the process. I mean, it's not all about money either. It's
Yes.
about the whole process.
And even going a little further than that, once we identify and bring on board our architect of choice, that any specific project can be negotiated.
That is correct.
We did that in the past. So nothing is etched in stone. And we had a couple times in our favor by negotiating on specific projects. So a lot of moving parts out there. And if you and I, Mr. Teray, we can take a bus down to Springfield, I'm with you.
Okay.
Well, just so you know, I'm going down on Friday, so anybody want to go with
Not
me?
Friday, not Friday. I'm a Sunday man.
I think it needs to be more than Mr. Teray. It needs to be, that's what I was trying to communicate. The people need to go and support the representatives asking the question, because
Right.
you can go down there. You've been going down there for 20-some
Forever.
right,
See,
Mr. Teray?
Oh, yeah,
The other thing I was going to add to what
since
you're
the
saying,
90s, early 90s.
the other thing I was going to add to what you're saying too, Ms. Sanders, is that it can't just be Representative DeLuca. It has to be
He has to know the people want that.
Yeah, not just him, but also other members of our state legislation. They have to come together and make a decision. It can't just be him bringing it. So if we want to go further with it, I think we need to.
And I'll touch on that,
but
too.
in reality, without going
I invite you all to contact whoever you want to contact.
But in reality, I understand why that law was like that. And this specific reason, with this professional service, there was reason, a good reason behind that. And
Yeah,
I
good
understood it.
lobbyists.
I understood
Well, no,
it to be the way it is.
I'll piggyback on that, Mr. Brown, because I actually support the law for a couple of reasons. So first, I'll say I believe we all want what's best for the people that we represent, not just in our sub-districts, but the entire district. And a lot of, we try to focus on doing what's best for the entire district. And I support the law because even thinking of us just picking an architect based off of money, and I would presume that, or assume that the law was written to deter districts from selecting firms based off of solely money, and we're building buildings that would fall apart because we're cutting corners and we're using cheap materials or, whatever else. And it's similar to the process of when we employ individuals. We don't sit down and say, firstly, out of our mouths, how much money do you want? We don't negotiate that first. We first want to see what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and we make a decision based off of that information. Then we negotiate money. So even in, in that sense, and I'm thinking it's more probably written because of a safety issue and structural issue. We don't want to put our kids in buildings, that could potentially fall apart because we're, cutting corners. So I support the law. I'll add to, Mr. Ture did contact Representative DeLuca. I was involved in that contact, and he was concerned. He wanted to know if the entire board wanted him to act on this and do something about it. And I know that's how he is usually. He will not act off of one individual board member. He's a former school board member himself, and he knows that collectively we would need to agree and want him to move forward for that. So that's how that went. But again, I support it, I understand it, and we all have different opinions, but that's my thoughts on it. And like Mr. Brown said, we are following the school code. So, okay, do we have a motion? We did have a motion. Okay, Secretary, please call the roll.
It was moved by Heisel and seconded by Brown?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, Mr. Ture?
Which motion are we doing here? I'm lost.
We have a motion to begin negotiations with architectural firm C.
C is in Charlie.
I'm going to vote no.
And Mrs. Stockton?
Aye.
Mr. Heisel?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Secretary's aye. Dr. Hall?
Aye. Okay, any old business? New business? May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sanders.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Stockton. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed say nay.
Nay.
We are adjourned.
And this is a record.
7:45 p.m.
We just broke a record.
No, a little longer than 45 minutes, because we started before 7. Yeah. Well, what do you, no, your wife's going to go, what are you doing here? I know. Wait a minute. What are you?